fly so much higher.
Hey everybody, this is Chad. Welcome back, and this week I have a highly anticipated, or I should say requested, video. This week I'm giving you my personal thoughts and reviews on language immersion schools. Specifically, the one that I went to, Genkijacs. It's a language and culture school in Fukuoka, Japan. But first, I think it's necessary that we clarify what a language immersion school is. The difference of a language immersion school is essentially that when you walk out of the doors of your school, you are completely immersed in the language that you're learning, which takes it out of America or England or Germany or wherever you're watching this from and puts it into the culture that you're learning it for. In my case, Japanese. So literally, you'll go into school and the kanjis that you learn in class, you walk out of your house and on your way home, you see those kanjis used right there. And you can say, oh, that means that. And so every day you are just forced and confronted with a language that you're not used to. And since you have to use it and it's all around you, you kind of absorb it and you'll pick it up theoretically a lot faster. And when I mean theoretically, I mean it depends on your work effort. I went to school with a lot of people and we all started at the same time, and some people that even technically were ahead of me in levels in classes, I ended up surpassing, not because I'm any smarter than them or because, you know, there's anything wrong with what they were doing, but they were doing just that. They were doing the work that the class gave them, and then they left, and all they did was hang out with their friends that are at the school that speak English or German or whatever that group particular language was. Side note, a lot of foreigners go to these schools, so you will hear it's not just default English. It's lots of kind of cliques of German and Swedish and English, and all the teachers teach in English, but there are a lot of cliques of people from all over Europe and just all over the world, so they all have their own little clans, I guess. But yeah, they hung out afterwards with their friends, which I did often. Like, I enjoyed that. But I also made it a thing that every day after school I'd go to Tenjin-core or Hakata-eki or all these places, and I would purposefully not be with anyone that spoke English just so I could use my Japanese. And I do this for hours. I just make friends randomly at random stalls and stores, and because of that, my speaking ability surpassed a lot of those people that even were in higher levels than me. Even though I didn't technically learn this set of grammar yet or learn this set of words yet, just because I was speaking so much in Japanese, I ended up learning that stuff on my own. Needless to say, the school did help, so I'm not dogging on the school. I'm not saying just go to Japan and you'll pick it up. That's obviously not the case. I have friends that have lived there for years that do not speak it fluently or to any sort of grasp of what the language is. It's all your workload. If you go to the school and you work hard and outside of it you're using it, you are actively trying to only speak Japanese and that sort of stuff, this school will teleport you to different levels. It won't launch you. You will go whoop, whoop, and you're somewhere else. It's awesome. But if you're going to slack off and really only speak with English speakers, or maybe you're staying with a person that speaks English over there that's a friend of yours, you might not get as much out of it as you're paying. So I will clarify one thing right now. You do not need to go to a language immersion school to learn the language. You just don't. You can learn it in Japan, outside of Japan. You can learn Spanish inside of Mexico or outside of Mexico. But what it does do is it expedites the process. You will learn so much faster than you've ever learned anything ever, in my opinion. So yeah, if you're just looking for not maybe a kickstart, like you're just starting, you're like, I just want to start in Japan and get really hitting my pronunciations well, and just want that kind of push to be like, yeah, I can learn Japanese, and it's not just going to be this fleeting thing. Language schools are for you, probably. If you're more of a self-studier and you don't do well in a class setting, it could still be for you. It more or less depends on what you pay for and your involvement in this school. Specifically, Genkijacs has many different levels of involvement, and it can go all the way from just basic classes you're just taking to sort of round it out to full kanji and test classes to help you through JLPTs, staying with host families so you can live, like, even when you live, you're living in a Japanese environment. Like, it's very expansive. My hair is nuts today. I'm getting a hat. So I guess that leads us to probably one of the most asked questions I've been asked. How much did it cost you to study there? And the answer is, for me, it varies. Mine was very cheap. I had people that blessed me with a place to stay over there. I didn't eat all-you-can-eat buffets every day like everybody else did. You know, I live kind of beneath my means over there, so like my trip was a lot cheaper than it would be for normal people. But I'll give you a price breakdown. It's all on their site, so this A will probably change. C will vary just with inflation. Actually, the yen inflated when I was in Japan, so tells you something about that. So Genkijacs' price breakdown varies on short term, 1 to 6 months, medium term, which is like 6 months to a year, and then long term, which are multiple years. The longer you stay, obviously, the cheaper it gets, but I assume most of you are probably going to stay in the 1 to 6 month range, which is the range that I did, so I'm going to focus there. The basic tuition that you can get with the site starts at about 30,000 per week. 30,000 yen, I'm using yen by the way, per week. And that's for your standard class. That's 20 hours a week, so 4 hours a day of really intense study. It doesn't sound like a lot, but it'll freaking kick your butt, especially once you start getting into it each week, 4 and 4 and 4 and 4, plus homework, obviously, and speaking practice. It can be a lot. But they also have like plus conversation, and they have different classes and courses for people that maybe like anime and manga, or who want to really focus on conversation over just textbook stuff. But yeah, budget about 30,000 a week for class. All right, next up, accommodation. The accommodation for Genkijac varies. It can be anything from a host family, so you can actually live and stay in a Japanese household, which was very, very nice, I'm sure. I had a very similar thing while I was there. It wasn't exactly a host family, but I was around Japanese people just about all the time. All the way to dormitories, which the dormitories are like maybe 60 square feet. It's like a really thin, actually, about the angle that you have here, that's about as wide as it is. It comes with just like a bed, a window, a very small desk, maybe like a little bit of walking space in between your bed and your desk. It's tiny. They're not too big. To sharing an apartment with people, all the way to private apartments, and there's actually different levels of private apartment, especially the longer that you stay, the better the deal is. Price-wise, it varies. Again, I'm not going to give you any prices because I didn't personally pay for one. I assume you'll probably stay in a dormitory that you'll eventually hate and move on to something better. But just the dormitory costs like 13,000 yen a week, something like that, more or less. About $100 a week. Beyond that, there's additional expenses. There's kanji classes, test-taking classes. You have to pay for a book, which, by the way, they use the Genki books, if you're wondering. They do not use the Mina no Nihongo books. Or at least for the earlier stages, they use the Genki books. Genki only goes to JLPT 4 level, so if you're past that, they'll have you in a different book. But they're known for using the Genki books. And there's also discounts for it. If you're part of the JET program, you get a discount. If you're a Fukuoka resident, you get a discount. If you've studied there before, you get a discount. More or less just because you paid for the school supplies, you bought your book and whatever, so they don't have to give you another one. But hey, discount's a discount. All in all, my schooling cost me about $1,200. I'm not including food into that. You're definitely going to want to budget for food, or fun, or bars, or women you might possibly meet there. There's a lot of additional expenses that go to going to Japan that go beyond just this school. Now, for the price, that's like $300 a week. That can be that's a hefty chunk, especially maybe if you're studying abroad or if you're paying for this like I did out of pocket. So your next obvious question is, well, was it worth the $300 a week? And my answer, truthfully, is yes and no. But in order for me to tell you why it is and is not worth it, to me personally, I have to kind of tell you what the classes are like. So the site says classes, the biggest that a class size is going to be a 6. For 2 of my 4 weeks that I was there, my first day at Genkijacs, I had 8 people in my class. And these rooms are not big enough to accommodate 8 people plus a teacher. They actually had a shortage of chairs, so there wasn't even enough chairs for the new people to come in, which kind of sucked. My classmates were awesome. They were from all over the world. They were from Sweden, Poland, Australia to start, and then we had a German come in and then another American come in for a week. Aside from that, the speed is they go about 1 chapter through the Genki books a week, more or less. It depends. It depends on how quick you can go and if you're keeping up. But it goes through about a chapter a week. So if you're there for 4 weeks, intend to go through 4 chapters of the Genki books. Which comes the first of my tips. Before you go to Genkijacs, buy the Genki books, figure out where you're at in that, and that'll save you a lot of time and heartache. Because when I went, I didn't know where I was in the Genki books. And the nearest class size to me was about 2 chapters below the level-ish that I was at. And the next class above that was a chapter ahead of that. And you have to learn that chapter, otherwise they won't let you move up. And in those chapters, there's probably 30 words you have to learn, plus the grammar and the kanji, which the kanji was an issue for me, but you know. And the issue was, I was way past these. I knew it would take about a week to get through a chapter. They tell you that at the school. So if they're like, hey, we're going to put you in a class that will get to your level in 2 weeks, that's, $300 a week. I'm paying $600 to review. And I was really upset about that. But luckily, that was probably the worst of my experience there. I learned so much. They pump your head. And not only do they give you, doing, a chapter a week, that seems kind of slow. They go over it so much of every possible combination of the grammar and the vocab that you could use in those chapters that it just comes off the top of your head by the end of the week. It's just ingrained and instilled in your head that that's the only way you do it. Yeah, and beyond that, they did kanji once a week. and it was usually for like a hour and a half class, and it's 10 kanji, and they teach you it the classic way, which is teaching you how to draw it, teaching you the Chinese and the Japanese readings for it, giving you examples for it, then you draw it yourself. They give you these cute little sheets. By the way, expect a lot of handouts, like just, that's what they do there. They give you handouts, which I'm not complaining about. So if you guys want to see what those handouts look like, just buy the workbook. They literally just copy it from the workbook, more or less. So is it worth it? The kanji might frustrate you a bit, just because if you know lots, like if you, for instance, watch my How to Read Manga in Japanese video, where I teach you how to learn lots of kanji easily, you know, you're basically wasting your time a little bit there. Not too much. It depends on what level you're at. But if you're anything in the first JLPT 5 or 4, yeah, you're wasting your time. Also, if you're going for a short period of time, and this is the thing that I can't stress enough, do not go for a short period of time. Do not go for 1 or 2 or even 3 weeks. I think minimum a month. Because even though they say they're accommodating, they kind of aren't. Make sure you know where you're at. Buy the Genki book. Figure out where you're at. Study everything in those chapters. If you know most of the words, but there's some words you don't know, study those words before you get there. So that way, right when you plug in, you're in. You're not behind. You're not dragging the class behind. And you know exactly where roughly you're going to be at. And you can say, look, I'm in the Genki book. I'm in chapter 7. And it'll be a lot easier to be like, well, we're going to put you in chapter 6. Why would I go through something I already know? Put me in chapter 7. You know what I mean? Set yourself up for success. Don't go there and do what I do and basically spend 2 weeks twiddling your fingers. Also, in schooling-wise, the teachers are outstanding. I have no issues with the teachers. The teachers were all phenomenal. I didn't meet a single one I didn't like. And I'm still friends with a lot of them, even back in America. So it's a great school. The people are really sweet there. There are bad points. It's not perfect. It's not Eden. But compared to a lot of the other language schools that I've read reviews for or went to, you know, any of that stuff, Genkijacs is probably the best one in southern Japan that I've seen. But to give you guys a rough estimate of where I was roughly before I went to Japan, if you guys are on Japanese Pod 101, which I link in like all of my videos, I was about newbie season 3-ish in my learning before I went my first time. I was at the school for 4 weeks, 2 of which were review. Mostly. And at the end of that, I'm still catching up now that I'm home, but I'm on beginner 4 and 5, season 4 and 5 now, which is like 6 seasons ahead. That's like 50 classes. And that's just in a month. I usually went through about a lesson every other day or every 3 days. So to go from that, it more or less tripled the amount of learning I could do on my own. But yeah, these are my 2 cents. If you guys have a different view on Genkijacs or on any of these language schools, then I would very much recommend writing it in the comments so you can tell people maybe watching this video that want to know about all these cool different language schools. If I didn't possibly answer your question, if you were coming to this video and you wanted to know something specific, feel free to comment down below. I'll answer it personally. I answer all my comments. I'm not some weird figurehead. Anyways, that's the end of this video. If you guys liked the video, be sure to like it down below. Subscribe to my channel. I put videos out every Wednesday or Thursday if you're in Japan. And I'll end this with my graduation speech from Genkijacs. I graduated in April, and so I'll leave that with you. I wrote a little pun. It's real good. Jazz hands.
じゃあ次も4週間勉強しましたチャド・ジバーマンさん。はい、終了証書チャド・ジバマウンドの非可動文です。おめでとうございます。
問題を聞いてください。500台車は青森から南へ行く。500台車は東京から来ていく。どこで会う？仙台。なんで？仙
Sky dive back down the